Alright, welcome to my talk-through guide on how to get a Duo Yakamaru kill. This is a Grandmaster combat achievement, and I'll be showcasing the base tank POV. I can't really break down any ability by ability rotations at all, as it's all largely improvised. I'm just trying to stick with the fundamentals of necromancy. Use conjures, build stacks, and use stacks. So instead of anything too detailed, I'll just be talking about the mechanics and strategies that we use to get this kill done. I'll also leave a full VOD of our kill linked in the description below if you just want to watch it unedited without any commentary. This was actually our first attempt at making it past the second pool. We did 2 warm-up attempts together, one where my partner died on the first pool to blue, and we realized how deadly that mechanic was in a duo, and the second where I died to Jellefish during a phase transition, and we realized how deadly those could be. So after 2 silly fails with some important learnings, we got our kill on the 3rd attempt. It's not some record-breaking speed kill, just a nice slow and steady, comfortable Duo Yakamaru kill. Hopefully it makes for a realistic showcase of what the learning process was like at Duo Yakamaru. So you can see from my gear, I'm using necromancy tank armor. I have a ton of brews and a ton of food. I also have primal feasts and even a hellhound pouch in the back of my mammoth if I run too low on food by the end of the kill. I brought sticky bombs and a spectral spirit shield with me, but honestly I didn't make great use of either one of those. We had the idea of sticky bombing Jellefish until we could use Threads of Fate to kill them, but since this was more of a learning attempt that turned out to be successful, I was more focused on just surviving than doing anything fancy. I have a second pair of Necro Tank legs with me that have the Turtling 4 perk on them for longer barricades as well. Mechanically, a lot of the core fight during the first 4 pools is exactly as you might expect it to be. You're focused on doing damage to bring Yakamaru to 100,000 HP, have one player absorb the poison that Yakamaru shoots out, and then deliver that poison back to the boss. In the interim, the boss will do some auto attacks, spawn a Jellefish, some more auto attacks, blue a player, a few more auto attacks, and then if applicable, it'll do a special mechanic related to the pool, i.e. drop the players in the quicksand, spawn a tendril, or launch the Sharknado. The stun pool doesn't have any special mechanics, so it just cycles between autos, jellies, autos, blues. Going into the fight, we were under the impression that Yakamaru's magic attacks did less damage than his ranged attacks, which in hindsight might only be the case if you're wearing crit bloom armor, but either way we did the majority of this kill from melee distance while praying magic. That had a couple of benefits, most notably whenever Jellefish spawned, they would also come melee distance to the pool in order to attack us, and we could easily use Threads of Fate to do some good damage on Yakamaru and the Jellefish at the same time. For instance, if you had 5 soul stacks and a Jellefish came out, you could Threads, volley, and maybe a weapon spec, and more often than not that would kill the Jellefish and do great damage to Yakamaru, so it saves you from face tanking a Jellefish for too long. You could also coordinate that strategy so that one player uses Threads on the first Jellefish spawn and the other player uses Threads on the second. That way you won't overlap your cooldowns, and you'll always have a reliable way of dealing with the Jellefish. The other benefit of being in melee distance is that our players were in close proximity of each other. That way, if and when we used Intercept, it was easy to know where the other player was going to be able to quickly click on them. Intercept proved to be a hugely important strategy throughout this fight. I mentioned in the beginning that the blue mechanic was especially deadly in a duo. It will ramp up in damage on one player, ultimately doing 12,000 damage to one player, if it's not passed or barricaded. So since there's only 2 of us, we can't really pass the blues. So we were barricading and intercepting each other for the blues. We coordinated it so that my partner would cade the first blue in the attack cycle and I would cade the second. That freed up one player's mind to do damage during one cycle and then build up adrenaline during the next. Another strategy that proved invaluable in surviving such a lengthy fight was taking advantage of Yakamaru's limited attack range. If the fight ever got too intense for any reason, like there were too many Jellefish, we had bad adrenaline before a blue was coming, our Yakamaru stacks were too high, or we simply needed to reorganize our inventories. Whatever the problem was, that could easily be resolved by running far away out of Yakamaru's attack range and taking a moment to reset. So long as you're keeping yourself in combat by stalling your adrenaline with some defensives or incantations like Darkness or Lord of Bones, there's no penalty for doing this. This is also the most common strategy used in most Daredevil and Golden Daredevil teams when it comes to the stun feat. So you can see occasionally we'll go all the way down south or all the way up north of the arena and just recollect ourselves. You can use this time to use Freedom and clear some of your Yakamaru stacks, refill your inventory from the Yak, or just calm your nerves and discuss your strategy before Mirage phase, for example. Ultimately, this does add a lot of time to the kill, but it is a really nice, safe, and easy strategy for learning. Another use of this strategy is during every phase transition when Yakamaru spawns a bunch of Jellefish. You can lure the majority of the Jellefish all the way to the north or south to have a safe place to deal with all of them. That way you're not prey flicking against Yakamaru and tanking damage from multiple Jellefish using multiple combat styles at the same time. Another tip for Jellefish during those transition phases is to never use Invoke Death on the 2 cycles that have the reflecting special Jellefish. Invoke Death is super nice on all of the other Jellefish, especially when you compare it with Threads of Fate, but on the cycles with the reflecting Jellefish, the death mark can sometimes proc from a colorful Jellefish through the reflecting Jellefish onto the player and do fatal damage to you. You could see this happen in our kill once, and it actually signed my partner, so that was definitely not ideal. Last tip I'll mention during the core 4 pools, and specifically during that phase transition time, is the player who absorbed the poison and gets washed up on the beach is going to be mostly useless for the next 20 seconds. Actually, both players are pretty much useless during that 20 seconds when you're doing CPR. So one really nice thing you can do is to use Shield Dome. That will provide a 50% damage reduction to both of the players while you're immobilized during the CPR. Yakamaru is attacking you and Jellefish are closing in on your position at this time, so this can be a particularly deadly time in the fight, and a time you definitely want to play safe, so be sure to take advantage of Shield Dome. How often do you really get to use that spell outside of times like this anyway? It's kind of fun to use something niche. So that's about all the tips I have for the core 4 pools. Just to reiterate them before Mirage, you want to do the kill from melee distance. That'll lure Jellefish in close to the boss within Threads of Fate distance. Coordinate your Threads of Fate and your barricades. One player threads the first jelly, barricades the first blue, and then the second player threads the second jelly and barricades the second blue. Tip number 3, take advantage of Yakamaru's limited attack range as a respite for you and your partner anytime during the kill, but especially during phase transitions when Jellefish are alive. Tip number 4, never use Deathmark during the Jellefish cycles with a reflecting Jellefish alive. You will perish very quickly. And the last tip, use Shield Dome during the CPR portions. Let's talk a little bit about Mirage now. Both players are going to want to have 10 planks each, and the 2 players are going to split up, each of them being responsible for 2 pools. The north player will be responsible for the sand pool and the stun pool, and the south player will be responsible for the tendril pool and the shark pool. The strategy will be very similar for both players. You'll each want to kill your plank pool as fast as possible, and then get that closed quickly. So get your 10 planks, go to the midpoint between your 2 pools, and feel free to make use of Devotion or Barricade if you want to play safe. This first section of Mirage will be the scariest since your inventory is mostly full of planks, don't have a lot of food, and it seems like there's a lot of things attacking you at once. Keep calm though, focus on your plank pool, so either the shark pool or the stun pool. In my case, I'm doing the south 2 pools, so I'll be focusing on the shark pool. Use Invoke Death, and just unleash your best abilities to drop it as quickly as possible. Death Skulls, both weapon specs, maybe even a big volley if you saved stacks, and then spam click to fill that pool. Refill your inventory with food from your yak, and if you're like me, you're almost out of food altogether. So you can try to find a moment to switch to your backup familiar. Now that you've closed the plank pool, your entire focus is just to run circles around the remaining pool. You want to avoid Jellefish to the best of your ability, and then the whole goal is just to be killing and filling the pool as many times as it takes to fully fill. A player can fill a maximum of 3 sands in a single cycle, so we're going to have to kill this pool 4 times at minimum. You could coordinate it to have both players go to the pool when it's near death and then both of you fill it up together, but that would also require you to use Barricade and Intercept, as not to get hit by Yakamaru's cowardice attack from the other pool. So we just did these pools solo in this kill. I use Invoke Death every time the pool respawns, as that's a free 30k damage each time, which helps a ton. Anytime there were Jellefish nearby, I could use Threads of Fate to build soul stacks and then throw out a high damaging volley as well. And overall my focus is just to play really safe. There's no shame in using defensives like Resonance, Devotion, Reflect, Debilitate, Immortality, or Barricade. You've come this far in the duo, you really don't want to throw now for no reason. So just keep repeating this strategy, running around the pool, whittling away at its HP, and once you kill it, spam click to fill at least 2 sands, ideally 3. Sometimes a fill can be interrupted by eating food or doing some other actions, so if you can help it at all, try to only focus on spam clicking and don't do any other actions. Sometimes that's not entirely realistic though. If there are Jellefish attacking you from melee distance, you will have to eat or do some kind of defensive, but you know what I'm trying to say. Play with situational awareness, make prudent choices in this part of the kill, or at least try to, and you should be successful. If you're the first player to fully fill your pool, you can move on to help your partner get their pool filled. Really important to note though, once you move in, you're both now susceptible to that pool's special mechanics. So my partner was never at risk of getting sanded until I moved closer. We just had to have that situational awareness and be ready for the possibility of having to free each other. Fortunately, my partner had already filled 9 out of 10 sands and I practically didn't even have to help him, but it's good to keep it in the back of your mind that special mechanics will be active once you're together. The only other tip I can think to share with you for the Mirage phase is if you're the sand tank player, be very careful with your clicks around the pool, as there's a really weird dead spot clicking around the cliff. If you've done enough in Yakamaru, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it won't register your clicks where you want them to go. Instead, it'll walk you towards the cliff, and it can be annoyingly tricky to get your camera angle positioned again to get out of it. Once all the pools are dead, there should be absolutely no way you throw the kill now. That'd be some 2021 Lost Puppy tier gameplay if you did. No shade, but please don't die with 50k HP left to do. It's so tilting. Especially with Necromancy and Deathmark, all you should really have to do now is a single weapon spec or a single big hitting ability. And there you have it. That was our approach to getting our Duo Yakamaru kill done. That is a Grandmaster combat achievement. Really happy to get that done, especially in only 3 tries. So shout out to my partner Jellefish. We met recently from combat achievements, and there's our first big Duo PVM feat together. So really glad to get that one done. If this was helpful, be sure to subscribe, as I'll be making videos like this for every single boss feat in the game. Check the description if you're interested in watching the full unedited video, but be sure to share this with a friend, leave me a comment. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.